Hello, everyone. This is Rob Wolf from the Loan Factory, and you are listening to the Lone Wolf podcast, or you're watching it on my YouTube channel, which is also the Lone Wolf podcast. And that's spelled loan like borrow money, Loan. You can reach me by email, rob.wolf at loanfactory.com, or you can call me on my cell, 727 366 5722. I'm not a bank or a credit union, so I'm available after 5 o'clock and even on the weekends. I'm in the ABC business. Always be communicating. I'm a licensed loan officer here in Florida, where I live, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and the great Rocky Mountain state of Colorado, where I vacation every year. This podcast is just me. However, if you wanted to be a guest, let me know. And if, assuming you're in the real estate profession, mortgage, what have you, call me or text me, whatever you want to do, and we can work out a time you can be on here as a guest. And I keep these podcasts under 30 minutes. This one will probably be closer to 20 minutes. And I air them every Wednesday at 9 o'clock p.m. But if you forget a podcast or whatever it may be, just go to my website and you can look at old episodes or even this one. And that's the lonewolfpodcast.com. And one other thing, use Google Chrome as your search engine. The other ones don't do well. Okay. So this episode, I'm going to talk about credit. Yes, the dreaded C word. Now, before I get into the weeds and talk about this, I am not certified, licensed, whatever that is called, to take care of someone's credit. Okay. I'm just going to be giving you some ideas, what you can do to help out your credit so that you can get a loan to get into home ownership. Okay. And some of these I'm going to talk about. You might be thinking, well, everyone knows that, Rob. Well, not really. But my hope is that I give some ideas out there that are thought-provoking that you never thought of, and you can take it home and then, work on your credit. Because let's face it, credit affects our lives because you can't pay cash for everything. Okay, we don't pay cash for homes. Some people do. Most of us don't. Cars are usually on credit, furniture, and maybe electronics or home repair. But I think what gets a lot of us in trouble is we use that credit card for everything. And it's easy. Just whip it out and start charging. But then we get the bill, and that's when we get into trouble. Okay, so before I start talking about in some details, let's hit some high-level stuff. Now, we all know that you need a certain credit score to get a home loan. Okay, 580 for FHA loans is the absolute minimum, and 620 for conventional. And that's just the minimum. So even if you get that home loan at 620, 580, whatever it may be, if you're at the low end, you're going to be paying a higher interest, or you might be paying extra fees to get that loan. And I'll go into a little more detail at the end, but keep in mind, as we all know, the higher your credit score, then the lower your interest rate because you're less risk to the lender. Okay. So without further ado, let's kind of dive into this. So obviously our credit score, that number is reflective of our spending habits. We have income coming in, and then we've got the outgoing bills. And if we're at an imbalance, that's going to make our number, unfortunately, lower. Now, I will say this. Income has nothing to do, or extremely very little to do, with your credit score. It's our spending habits. I mean, kind of like our government. They're spending too much money. Okay, that's why we're $33 trillion in debt. Okay, I'll get off my political soapbox. So the reason I say this, I've being a loan officer, obviously I pull credit, and I've seen people, couples, whatever it may be, well over $100,000 of income, but their credit score, I couldn't get them a loan, or it was a very small loan because they had so much debt out there. I just closed a loan this week. My borrower had a small pension and Social Security income and was one of the best credit scores I've seen. Okay, so it's all about our habits, spending habits, that is, and watching our pennies. So let me go over a couple things. And again, hopefully these are some ideas for you never thought of, and I can educate you to get you into that home ownership realm. So the first thing is credit cards. That's usually the big ticket item that I see. And obviously you want to get the balance down to zero. That's your ultimate goal. Let me say, when you do that and you get a credit card down to zero balance, don't close it. Keep it open. Just don't use it anymore. Okay, because the credit agencies, they don't like when you close accounts. For whatever rhyme or reason, they like minimum of three trade lines. That's, credit cards that you have, and that you show that you've got spending on them, but you pay them off and you have no balance. Okay. Now, speaking of balance, let me tell you a little trick you can use to help your credit score. Because a typical dialogue I have with some people is they say, I have no debt because I pay my credit card in full. And I explain to them, that's very good. You're paying the credit card in full, but you do have debt. And I explain to them that your purchases throughout the month, there's a certain day that balance gets reported to your credit agency. Okay. And that's what gets recorded. Okay. So let me dial it back, and let me give an example here. Let's say somebody has a credit limit of $10,000. Okay. You can charge up to $10,000 on your credit card, which is kind of scary to think that you can charge that much money if you make $50,000, $60,000 a year. Okay. But anyway, it's $10,000 is your limit. And let's say somebody charges $4,000 a month. That's their average, and they pay it off at the end of the month. They think they don't have any debt, but they do. So what happens is your credit card company, Visa, MasterCard, there's a certain day of the month that they report the balance. So let's say it's the 25th of the month, that they report the balance. And it's, in this case, let's say it's $4,000. A few days later, your bill goes out in the mail. You receive it, the 30th of the month. Oh, okay, $4,000. Let me pay it. So you paid it all off. Well, what you don't realize is that $4,000 reported on the 25th, that's what I would receive on your credit report, that you've got 40% debt on your credit card, your balance. Okay. You want to be under 30%. Obviously, the lower the number, the better. So how do you counteract this? You get ahead of the curve. Call your credit card companies. Ask them, what day are you reporting my balance to the credit agencies? Your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. You might be able to change that day to make all your credit cards the same day. But bear with me. Let's just look at one credit card. So let's just say it's the 25th. Well, what you do is you back it up, let's say the 21st or the 22nd of the month. You'll know your balance. You can call the 800 number to find out what is your balance. Then you go online and you pay before the balance is recorded. So in our example, let's say the person had, $3,500 that they want to pay off. Well, so if they pay the $3,500, then the balance recorded on the 25th is only $500. That's 5% of what they can charge. Okay. Does that make sense? So you want to get that percentage that you're available to charge under 30, the lower the better. And that will increase your score like the next month. It'll jump pretty high. Okay. So that's the credit cards. Now, personally, what I do, there's select things that I use my credit card for, mostly gas, because I don't want to go into the place and pay cash and then go back and forth with change. Um, but I give myself an allowance in cash, and that's my money. That's all I can use. Okay, because psychologically, people are less willing to give up that cash. And believe it or not, a little side story: J.C. Penney, the retail store, used to be called the Golden Store, and Jack Penny was the owner. He refused to allow credit cards because he knew. He said, "I know this will increase sales, but morally it's wrong because I know that people will not have the discipline." And he was right. Now it ended up that they had to go to credit cards because he lost control during the Great Depression. That's another story. Anyway, my point being is, try that sometime. Just give yourself an allowance, and that's all you can use, to spend on whatever during the week. And it might help out to lower your credit card purchases. Okay, so let's look at the monthly expenses. Okay, there are certain things you have to have. You can't avoid them. Your rent, your utilities. Let's talk about food. Okay, I think this goes without saying. If you're eating out, you're losing the ball game here. Now, I'm not saying don't eat out at all, but if you're eating out more than twice a week, 3 times a week, you are losing a lot of money. Okay. I've got a separate video out there that a single person can eat healthy for less than $50 a week, $7 a day. Okay. That's the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks, which is another point I want to bring up. Are you going to Starbucks in the morning or Dunkin' Donuts at the drive-in? When I see them 10 cars deep, people going to Starbucks. Or how about lunchtime at work? Are you eating out at lunch, or do you have the opportunity to bring in a cooler? So think about those things. Look at your credit card statement when it comes out, or put your expenses on an Excel spreadsheet. I do it, and it makes you aware of where your money is going. Okay, so again, if you're eating out during the week, you're never going to catch up. Okay, so the $2.99 buffets or the super bars at Wendy's, they're gone. Okay, I don't know any place you can go anymore for less than $15 and eat, and then you've got tax and tip on top of that. Okay, all right, I'll get away from that point. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't eat out at all. It's nice to treat yourself. Maybe a Friday night, go to the pizzeria. Pizza's inexpensive, and a pitcher of beer or whatever, it's only $25. So just keep that in mind. Eating out, keep it to a minimum. Keep it to the once or twice a week treat, and leave it at that. How about cable? You still have cable? Take a look at it. Personally, I ditched it. I literally went back to when I was a kid. I've got an antenna on my chimney, and I have free TV now. When it got to $100 a month, I said, that's it. I'm done. And I don't miss it. I get the regular network TVs plus a couple other side, channels, and I'm happy. If I want to see something really bad, I have a Fire Stick, costs $35, and I can go search and stuff on there. Now, internet, you may have to pay for that. However, You don't have to. If you've got I've got an iPhone, and there's a hotspot that I can connect to my computer. And I do this every day when I'm in the car. I take my laptop with me. If I'm out visiting realtors or going to open houses, whatever it may be, I have my laptop with me just in case I get a call from a buyer or a real estate agent. We got to work on a loan or what have you. So that might be an avenue for you to ditch internet altogether. Now, I will say this, if you got a Fire Stick for your TV, you needed the internet. So just keep that in mind. You might be able to get, a combination there to save yourself $50 to $100 a month between getting rid of cable and then if you want to get rid of internet or what have you. But there might be some money to be had there. Okay, I already mentioned eating out, with lunches and what have you. And again, in the mornings with coffee or Starbucks. I'll say this one thing about food. If you're eating processed foods, the frozen dinners you throw in the microwave, you're wasting a lot of money. Cooking is fun. I enjoy it. I just do it on the weekends and reheat my fresh, meals during the week. So I encourage you, just try that. It's fun to cook and eat a lot healthier and you save a lot of money. The other big expense, cars. I have seen car payments on people's credit scores of over $800 a month. And they're not able to get a loan because of this. Folks, this is an area that I know, unless you live in the city and have public transportation, you need a car. So I've always lived on the adage, this is a necessary evil, and keep your costs to a minimum. Personally, I have a Nissan Altima from 2013 that has 224,000 miles on it, and I'm still driving it. And that goes for my previous Nissans before that. Obviously, I favor Nissans, but I have not heard many horror stories about Nissans, Toyotas, and Hondas. Okay? You can buy these cars, and I went on cars.com, and you can do it yourself. Put in cars.com, $15,000, 100,000 miles, and see how many cars come up. Okay, these cars go well over 200,000 miles. And for $15,000, you could get a loan out there, a 4-year loan, and pay $360 a month, give or take. That's a heck of a lot better than $500, $600, $700 a month. Okay, so again, this may not be for you, but if you ride your cars until they die or get pretty bad, you'll save yourself a lot of money. If you're caught up in that trap of every 4 or 5 years recycling cars, you're never going to catch up. If your credit is bad, okay, this is a way that the car dealers, they catch you. They'll call you, hey, how would you like to trade your car? And we got another one. Keep your car payments the same. No problem. So you think it's a win-win. All you're doing is paying rent. You're paying $400 or $500 a month, and you have nothing, saved up. I'll say this one last point, and then I'll move on. I'm 57 years old. In my life, the total amount of money I spent on cars is $80,000. So think about that. For 40 years, $80,000. What's that, $2,000 a year? Divided by 12 months in a year? So my monthly payments throughout my driving life, $150, somewhere around there. So give that some thought to buy used cars with maybe 100,000 miles and ride them until they die. And you'll be a lot better off for it. Okay. How about clothing? Okay. If you're shopping at the retail outlets and spending $50+ for a pair of jeans or $50 for a shirt, you're not going to catch up. Okay. Plato's Closet. I know they're down here in Florida. They've got designer brands, high-end stuff. So if you're into the fashion, you can shop there. Um, if you're a jeans and t-shirt guy at heart like me, or just like a polo shirt here or there, go to a thrift store. Go to garage sales. Um, I've got a blazer that I bought 10 years ago for $5 at a Goodwill store. So typically what happens, and we all know this, people have clothes. They may have put on weight and they just give it to Goodwill. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for cheap clothes, plus it's great to get bargains at garage sales and thrift stores or what have you. So the last thing I want to talk about is once we have a contract signed. Okay, so let's say we get you up into we're on the ball field. What's that? We're on the court. We're playing a ball now. That our credit score is above 620. We get a pre-approval letter, and we have a contract. So now we've got about 30 days, and we're going to close on this loan. Well, one of my lenders, and I did a podcast on this as well on my YouTube channel, what they can do is they can help you get your score even higher in those 30 days to help you out on your loan to get a better rate or a lender credit. So, and I'll explain it real quick. The credit agencies, it's 20-point increments. So 600 to 620, 621 to 640, and so on, all the way up into the 800s. Well, if you can get your score up to that next bracket, you may not get a lower interest rate, but you'll get a lender credit. Okay, so if you're at, and I'll just use these numbers. Let's say you're at 635 and you're at 7% interest rate, but you may have to pay $500 to get that interest rate. Well, if I can get you in the 640s or 660s, maybe that $500 you have to pay goes away. You save yourself $500, maybe by only paying $100, $200 off of your credit card. Okay, so keep that in mind. So what would happen, and I'll explain it real quick, we would have a loan, well, we'd have a contract, and I would, submit this information to my lender, being Rocket, and I would submit it to their credit department. And then they would look at your credit and they would do simulations. Okay, if we could do this, 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 and this, we'd increase the score 25, 35, 45 points, and that would save you $400, $500, $600, $700. I've heard big loans of being saved like a couple $1,000s. Okay, so again, this is a service that I, as a loan officer, can offer this to you. And I asked it in my video, does your bank do this? I don't know, maybe they do. I'm just asking a question. But these are value add services that some lenders can offer. And me being a broker, I work with that lender, Rocket, and it's great to have. So hopefully this gives you some ideas, some tips of getting that credit score up there so that you're not stressed out or you're going to get pre-approved and what have you for the loan. So again, this is rob.wolf@loanfactory.com is my email address. My phone number is 727-366-5722. That's my phone. That's my only phone. And the Lone Wolf podcast is Google it and it'll come up, and you can do it on YouTube as well. All right, folks, if you have any questions, concerns, hit me up anytime. I'll be happy to help out. Okay, have a great day.